This is KMJ at KMJNow.com or wherever you stream. Welcome to the Marc Kapetan Show. This is attorney Marc Kapetan, your host. Today's show is brought to you by the Kapetan Brothers Law Firm. We've been serving the Central Valley since 1995. If you or anybody you know has been injured in an auto accident, a truck accident, or a motorcycle accident, give us a call at 559-498-8000. Or if you've been cited or arrested or, sort of gotten a ticket for some sort of criminal offense, call the Kapetan Brothers at 559-498-8000. Kapetan Brothers, we're the Valley's law firm. Marcel, not going so smoothly today, is it? Part of the reason is because I'm trying to... I realize I don't think I ever asked the official title for our next guest. You sent it to me, Marcella? Marcella is very upset with me today, folks, because she sent me a second set of notes that I didn't read. So I must not have gotten them, Marcella. I'm so sorry. I'm sure it's purely my fault. I know it is. So, by the way, before we introduce you, what is your title, Captain?
Not quite. A little short of that. I am a engineer.
Engineer paramedic?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to talk to our next guest, an engineer paramedic. Also, his biggest title is husband to the greatest paralegal ever from our office, Heather Pallas. But we wanted to have Heather's husband on the air with us today. It stems back to not only him being a firefighter for the Sanger Fire Department, but also because he was recently assigned to the Palisades, or at least the fires down in LA, one of the areas down there that we're going to discuss. And it was fascinating to me to know that he was down there. Also scary to know that he was down there at the time that Heather was basically taking care of the family without her beloved husband down there. Because Peter and I had actually gone to the Creek Fire, which was up here in Shaver Lake, and we're going to talk a little bit about it and the amount of danger, destruction, and helplessness and hopelessness that you get when you stand in the midst, and this is as the fires are going on, was so foreign and overwhelming to me and my brother Peter. And I'm talking actual danger where Peter almost got very severely burned. That to volunteer as part of your job to go into something like that is not only the mark of what I would consider a real man, because I don't know if I would volunteer after seeing that, but also just something fascinating regarding the science behind it. And so we wanted to find a guest to go ahead and explain some of that stuff and explain what it's like to be a true man, a firefighter. And so today on the Marc Kapetan Show, from the Sanger Fire Department, engineer and paramedic, Michael Pallas. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, okay, listen. You were located where during the LA fires?
The strike team that I was a part of was assigned to the Eaton Fire, which was in Altadena.
Altadena, so those were those Altadena fires outside of Pasadena, right?
Correct.
Okay. You were there for how long?
It was right about 13. I think we came home on day 13.
Okay. 2 weeks away from the family.
Yes.
You sit there and you think, okay, we're near cities. There's streets, there's roads to go on, but nonetheless, there's the outskirts of the city that was on fire, which is basically forest land, or what?
It's different in each part of the state. They break the wildland up into two primary different responsibilities, which would fall under the state or the federal government. Yeah. So in any given municipality or small town somewhere located in the wilderness, they might be surrounded by either state responsibility area, they call it, or a federal responsibility area.
You were assigned there as part of a state response, or?
That fire was managed by the state, and so in that regard, you could say I was there as part of the state response. Typically, though, you have both federal, state agencies involved, as well as the local governments.
Okay. How many acres did they estimate burned as a result of the Altadena fires?
I don't know what the final number was before they determined it to be completely contained and extinguished, but it was somewhere around 14,500.
And 14,500 acres, you're talking, I mean, do you even know what that is in miles, square miles, basically? I should have done the calculation ahead of time.
I've done it in the past, but that's been years ago, and I can't recall.
I mean, are we talking? Marcella, get on that for me. Figure out the 14,000 acres. How many square miles that is? Because let me ask you this: compared to the Creek Fire up in Shaver Lake, much bigger fire, the Creek Fire.
The Creek Fire, as far as acreages burned, was much higher, and I don't remember the exact total on that one, but it was in the hundreds of thousands.
And that was coming from Altadena Fire. Did it start at one place and spread out, or did it come from multiple locations and come in? To
be ultra specific, every fire starts in more or less one spot, unless it was intentionally set with multiple places.
Well, and there was a theory that's part of what it was, potentially could have been.
I've not heard an official cause determination, and I don't know that I've heard that theory either. But I can imagine what the conspiracy.
Well, here on KMJ, we just say whatever we need to. No, I'm joking.
Okay. From what I understand, it originated in the wilderness area immediately adjacent to the city of Altadena. And because of the wind events that were happening at that time, it went from very small fire to a very large fire almost immediately.
Okay, Marcella, look at this, man. Was that our first research, Marcella, done live on air? 21.875 square miles, Marcella says. Wow.
It sounds so much smaller like that.
Well, geez, that's the incorporated city of Fresno and Clovis and everything, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay. You're assigned to the outskirts of it? Are you guys main players in it, in the middle of it? How's that work?
When we first arrived, it was early afternoon, I think on January 8th. And the winds had just died down about an hour or two before we actually went out onto the line.
I heard there's could be up to 150, 200 mile an hour winds at some point.
I heard that they were seeing sustained numbers between 80 and 100 miles an hour. I don't know what the peak gusts were in the area at the time. But talking to locals who have lived there for 20, 30 years, they were saying that they are obviously impacted most years by the Santa Anas, but the extent of that impact is usually pretty small in that specific area. So to have them sustained for several hours like they did with the severity of it, with that mile an hour, that 80 to 100 mile an hour, they said they've never experienced in the 20 or 30 years that they had lived there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So really unique circumstances.
So you got basically a blowtorch, a lot of hot fires with, high winds, which creates even more significant oxygen supply to the fire, which increases the temperature, etc. The one thing that Peter and I noticed, or several things, but one of the things that we noticed when we were up at the Creek fires, by the way, we had a press pass courtesy of KMJ, so we were able to get in, is even though the fire had been extinguished in certain areas, we would pass by a little small patch and we'd tell a firefighter, hey, there's a little small patch of fire. I mean, I'm talking like the size of a trash can. And they would say, yeah, don't worry about it because over the hill is a raging inferno.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, when you come back, that little small fire is now a significantly large fire, enough that if you don't get out of there in time, you're trapped in it. The other thing that we noticed is the amount of, after it's burned, it looks like a nuclear holocaust, basically. And after it's burning, the big rocks that were up there were hot to the touch for days and days and days. And so you guys are sitting there walking into, literally, not figuratively, an inferno. And it's just got to be overwhelming to the senses.
In the immediate, it's happening right now in front of you. It's not overwhelming because we're trained for it. We're educated in how to respond to it when it does get to that point. So with experience, we're able to recognize when those events are about to happen, and we can get ourselves to a safe location. But once kind of the chaos settles down, then yes, it is very overwhelming.
You look back on it and you're like, oh, you know what?
Yeah, you get to a spot where you can see clearly through the smoke or the clouds or whatever, and see the actual vastness of the devastation. And it's pretty overwhelming.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that vastness from the Sanger Fire Department, Michael Pallas. We'll be right back after this. This is the Marc Kapetan Show on KMJ. This is KMJ at KMJnow.com or wherever you stream. Folks, you know the drill. If you have been injured in an auto accident, a truck accident, or a motorcycle accident, who do you call, Marcella?
The Kapetan Brothers.
The Kapetan Brothers. She knows because she works with the lovely wife of our guest, Michael Pallas, who's here from the Sanger Fire Department. Call the Kapetan Brothers and speak to... well, I won't mention specific names because she gets enough calls. So if you've been injured in an auto accident, a truck accident, or a motorcycle accident, give the Kapetan Brothers a call at 559-498-8000. That's good enough. We don't need to mention specific names, but talk to one of the lovely staff there, and we'll ease your concerns and we'll help you out. So Kapetan Brothers, the Valley's law firm. We are here with Michael Pallas. He's from the Sanger Fire Department. He is a trained firefighter, EMS technician, paramedic, and a forest firefighter, right? Is that separate training, Michael?
Yes. So my primary responsibility is a structural firefighter or municipal firefighter. We primarily deal with response to structures, vehicles, things along those lines. Part of our job, it also includes, especially being in Sanger, surrounded by rural communities. So responding out into the wildland as well to grass fires, forest fires, things along those lines.
The title engineer is a special training for that, and what does that specifically mean for a firefighter?
Yes, so that's going to mean different things for the most part throughout the country and different parts of the world, but for the most part here on the West Coast, an engineer is the individual responsible for driving the apparatus and the inventory of the apparatus, make sure all the equipment on the apparatus is in good working order, things are stocked. And
so you're the guy that every kid loves, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
All the kids in Sanger that see that thing driving through town and giving the old air horn.
Yeah. Were you from Sanger?
Not originally. No.
Okay.
We live there now.
From where, though, originally?
From Easton.
And we're going to get into family and all that kind of stuff. I want to get back to some of the fires down in L.A. that you were handling. But was that the impetus, seeing one of those guys drive by one day?
So I went to Washington Colony Elementary School, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump down the street from Cal Fire Station.
By the way,
89.
that's how they say it in Sanger, a hop, skip, and a jump from the firefight. Okay.
And out in Easton, things are over there yonder. So,
okay.
I remember being a young child and at school quite frequently seeing the fire engine from Station 89 driving by, lights and sirens, and just feel like most kids are probably fascinated by that.
Every kid wants to be a firefighter, but most kids don't. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. I love how he says I was a young child once. Right? Marcel and I were sitting here going, you may be one of the youngest guests we ever had. So
feels like many moons ago to me, but
oh my gosh.
In company.
Okay. One of the things that, and folks, anybody down there in Los Angeles, going back into those areas, one of the things is I went to do a report for KMJ from one of the locations just above Cressman's that had burned down. Real sad, up there in Shaver at the Creek Fire. And as I'm doing a report, I finally hang up the phone. The report's done. We did it live on air. And I hear Peter yell, "Mark!" I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I go running over there. And he walks out, and his leg is covered with ash above the knee. And what he said was that he saw a stump that had burned out. And so he went to go check out the stump, and his leg sinks. And he's lucky that it had burned maybe a little bit of time ago, matter of more hours or whatever, because sometimes those roots will burn underground, and a lot of people get burned from the roots that are still like lava hot.
Yes. That's something they actually specifically teach us to watch out for in areas that have previously burned over.
Yeah, your wife may not have been our secretary at the time, so we couldn't consult anybody.
No, probably not back then.
But between that and trees falling, and they say even months or years later, a tree will just all you heard was, number one, they were cutting down trees, but other trees just falling down.
Yeah, on the creek fire, not so much. So the night that Cressman's burned down was actually a very similar weather phenomenon that causes the Santa Anas. They call it a phone wind. Here locally, they call it the Mono winds.
Oh, yeah. Mono Wind Casino. Really?
Yeah. So I believe that night it was somewhere to the tune of 40, 50 mile an hour winds that really fans the flames, pushes it, moves it very quickly. And that was the night that Cressman's burned down. But starting after that flaming front moved through, and then for several days after that, it was, depending on where you were in relation to that big flaming front, you could hear trees falling every 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah, Marcella, that's exactly right. And when you're in that canyon, because we were up in Huntington area also, when you're in that canyon of the Huntington Lake and those things fall down, you just hear a boom, rumble, 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 rumble. It's just eerie. Especially, like I said, it's gray ash everywhere. In fact, on Facebook, I think it's on our Kapetan Brothers, you could go back and look up that creek fire out at Huntington and Shaver, and you could see about a 5-minute clip that we had posted on there, and it looked like you're going through a war zone. It's just nuts.
Yeah. I've not personally been to a war zone, but knowing what they look like on TV.
Okay, listen, you're a real man, and I'm not, and I haven't been to a war zone either. I mean, what you see on TV it's worse than that, especially because you're sensing everything, including the smoke.
Very much, that was the impression that I got from the Eaton fire as well.
Where was that?
It was in Altadena, one of the LA fires.
Okay.
So we actually didn't see any wildland the 2 weeks that we were there, because we were working in the city of Altadena itself, where the fire had moved through. So it was a very unique experience in that we were deployed on a quote unquote wildland incident, but we were doing very much structural firefighting work.
Right. Which was that? Is that primary training for you?
The wildland firefighting is included in our initial training in the fire academy, but that I believe was a 2-week class throughout the fire academy that was roughly 4 or 5 months.
Right.
So,
but you have swaths of houses, neighborhoods just being destroyed, right?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yes. I don't know if 14,000 miles is, what was it, 20-ish square miles?
20-something square miles, yeah.
I would wager probably half of that was within city limits.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're kidding me. I didn't know it was that many houses. I know that we've all heard about the Palisades fires and stuff like that, but I didn't realize that much happened up in Eaton, too.
I want to say the final count was somewhere around 8,000 or 9,000 structures that were lost.
Oh, my God. Just in that area?
Just in that area, yes.
Oh, I heard the last count was about that much just throughout total, but I didn't know it was, oh my Lord.
Yeah, I think somewhere between Palisades and Eaton, they were looking at like 15 to 20,000 homes that were lost.
Marcella, research, how many homes in Fresno? Yeah, structures. Okay, just as long as we're doing research on the fly here.
The city of Sanger limits is roughly 5 square miles, so we're looking, and I don't know how many structures are within that city.
Yeah.
That might be something to
I haven't been to Sanger Court in a long while, so I don't know what it looks like nowadays. Oh my gosh.
It was, the whole time going through, it was very much thinking, just like you had said, this looks very much like what war zones look like after they've been leveled by munitions being dropped. And
yeah, I can imagine.
Roughly the equivalent of the city of Sanger being completely leveled.
We'll be right back with Michael Pallas from the Sanger Fire Department talking about the Altadena fires, the creek fires, and just life in general. Right after this is the Marc Kapetan Show on KMJ. This is KMJ at KMJnow.com or wherever you stream. Folks, you could check out all the KMJ shows at kmjnow.com or on your KMJ Now app. Go to the podcast section. You can check out your favorite, mine, Ray Appleton. You could check out John and Christina, Philip and E, The Morning Show, Chris Gabriel and all those guys there. Lots of great people on KMJ, and you can check it out if you don't get it live, including the weekend crew. You can check it out at kmjnow.com. Also, you could see the Marc Kapetan Show, the video version of the Marc Kapetan Show. But yay, Marcella says she's clapping her hands at on Facebook, YouTube, Truth Social. Just like us, subscribe, smash that like button, like the kids say. What else do the kids say, Michael Pallas?
I cannot keep up with what the kids say.
Oh, come on. Come on. What would Abby say?
I know some words, but I don't know what they mean, and so I'm not going to say them on air.
Have you gotten that? Have you gotten to that generation now?
Oh, very much so.
Really?
Yeah.
Dad, it's sus. That's sus, Dad. That's what Marcella's kids taught us.
My favorite thing is, what is the rest of that word?
Oh,
you say sus, but what is...
Yeah. Do they know? Do the kids know?
Sometimes.
Abby knows. She's a sharp
Sometimes.
girl. Lovely Abby over there. So at the Pallas household. Listen, Michael, one of the things that I wanted to ask is basically can anything be done when these things are just so tremendously volatile and like I said, a blowtorch? Have you checked out this thing on YouTube? And folks, if you haven't seen it, go to something called on YouTube, a 1960 film called Design for Disaster, I believe is the working title or the title. Narrated by your favorite and mine, William Conrad. Marcella, you would know who that is because you're too young for it, and Michael's certainly too young for it, although I heard you guys are about the same age. And it talks about in the 1960 or 61, there was a very, very similar fire in Palisades. I think it was in Palisades, where LA's several thousand houses burned, or maybe about 700 to 1,000 houses burned down. And it was a big considered disaster back then. And when you watch it, it was basically a lesson on, hey, this is what we did to try to prepare, but we could have done this, and here's what we have to look out for in the future. And it's exactly what occurred now.
I honestly don't think that there is anything that can be done to stop a fire of that magnitude. I've seen some pretty interesting theories and YouTube videos where I don't remember who it was, what entity. It probably wasn't even in the States, where they lit a large area of grass on fire and then actually dropped a bomb on it, and the pressure wave from the bomb actually extinguished the fire.
Oh.
Everything within the
got
area also got obliterated by a bomb.
So it truly looked like a war zone.
I don't know that when you have such a unique set of circumstances as was the case down in LA, where everything's very dry, it's unusually warm, and you've got just these massive communities that quite literally across the street is the wildland.
Okay.
It's going to be a problem.
This is your book report, okay? This is your homework, since you're way younger than I am. I'm going to send you home with an assignment. I want you to watch this show and report back, if you haven't seen it, and report back to me, because that's exactly what they were saying is there are certain forestry techniques that needed to be done that weren't done. There are staging that was a regular part of the business. Now, mind you, with that said, it was very primitive compared to nowadays as far as some of the equipment that they had, but they did stage some of the people there. So you may be right saying there's maybe nothing you can do when these things break out, but it's an interesting view to go watch this thing, and that's your homework for today. Okay,
I will do that.
All right, you talked about how you saw that firefighter in where were you? Layton or Eaton?
Eaton.
No. When you were a kid.
Oh, in Easton.
Easton. That's what I got mixed up from. And there's another fire that you were at, a big fire, and I was thinking that's where you were referring to up north, right?
That was the Ferguson fire.
Okay.
In and around Yosemite.
Okay. So you've seen it all as far as that stuff's concerned. Young kid, mom and dad did what?
My dad had a landscaping and yard maintenance business.
Okay.
And my mom was a teacher.
Do you know landscaping? Because I need it really bad right now.
I know how to plant.
Okay, forget about it. Don't worry about it. No. I need some water lines run, but that's a whole nother thing. Call me if you want to at the Kapetan Brothers. That may be my first free request for assistance. Oh no, I'm really becoming a radio guy now.
Call with your quote.
Mom, Dad, nice people. You met Heather, the lovely assistant over there, a paralegal at Kapetan Brothers, through how?
Oh, I have an older sister.
Yeah.
She was 2 grades ahead of me in school, and she played in the high school band. So they needed people. I had been playing trumpet for several years at that point, and was deemed to be good enough to play with the high school to kind of help fill some holes.
Yeah.
And so the high school band was taking a trip down to Disneyland to play in one of their recording studios that they have there in the park. And I was fortunate to be able to tag along with that.
Wait a minute. Is there actually a recording of you and Heather playing at Disneyland?
Well, I don't know if we were actually recorded or who would have a copy of it.
Really?
But we'll just say we're a few years apart. And
wait a minute. Were you guys both in high school together?
I was not in high school.
But you were going and playing with the high school kids?
Okay. I believe I was in 8th grade at that point.
I didn't catch that. Sorry, Heather. I remember this, but yeah, I didn't mean to say it out loud on the air. So.
Heather and I had a mutual friend who I was sitting next to him on the bus, and that was the first time that I can remember meeting Heather.
Look at Heather, the high school girl, going for the 8th grader.
Hardly.
Oh, you were going hard for her?
No. Okay. We had no interest in each other at that point. Was
the fire red hair of hers attractive to you as a future firefighter?
I would have considered her attractive back then. Yes.
And now, right, and now, Michael? Yes. Wow. Marcel's looking at him like.
The attraction has not changed.
Of course, I know.
It hasn't lessened.
You guys talk about each other glowingly. Yeah, you really do. And she missed the hell out of you when you were gone for those 2 weeks. The lovely Abby over there. Who plays sports better, you or Abby?
I would say that she is a better softball player than I ever was a baseball player. But I would say I'm the better athlete.
He's throwing down the gauntlet there.
I'm a multi-sport athlete.
For fun, you guys do what? Hunting, fishing? I understand that's part of your hobbies.
When time allows, I'd like to get out and do some hunting. Heather and I both enjoy fishing. When the opportunity arises, we'll go camping and take. By the way, hikes.
When does time allow in that family? You have one child over there. And I said, Heather, you want to come down and watch the tape? And she's like, oh, no, batting practice. Yes. I'm like, wow. Yeah. It's nonstop. Little Abby's just a go-getter.
Softball right now is 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
Team practices 3 nights and then private lessons on the other 2 nights. And then most weekends are tied up with tournaments. So free time is limited.
She looking for that college scholarship?
She is realizing that she has that potential. So I don't know if she's really sat down and said, yes, I'm going to go play softball in college, but she's realizing that she can if she wants to.
No, that's what I heard. It's, she's got the talent from what I understand. Mm-hmm. So good for her. Did you watch the movie Backdraft when you were a kid? With the Ron Howard movie?
That is indoctrinal training to the fire service. It is. I did not watch it as a kid. The first time I saw it was actually in the fire academy.
In the fire department?
Although I guess by my standards now, I was still a kid back then. So.
Yeah, you have to, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, here's another trivia thing. Watch this, Marcella. We'll see how young this guy is. Is your favorite actor ever Randolph Mantooth?
I don't know who that is by name.
Oh. Who's your captain?
Probably old enough to know who that person is.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're a EMS or
is this somehow related to Emergency?
Are you kidding me? He was the star of Emergency. Randolph Mantooth. Dude, I looked him up.
Picture I might recognize, but not name.
He's still around. We got to get him on the air. I loved him as a kid. Oh, are you kidding me? He was. Oh God, what was his name in the show? I can't remember his name in the show. Yeah, it's required. All right, so that's another homework assignment.
Who was his character?
See, that's what I'm. Listen, I tried to remember Ron Howard's name today. His name was John. John, Roy, and Dixie, played by Julie London. Oof, Dixie, yeah. Anyway, all right, so that's another. You're going to watch that other movie I told you about, and then you're going to go get on YouTube. I'm sure they have it on YouTube.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. All right, we got to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back with Michael Pallas from the Sanger Fire Department right after this. This is the Marc Kapetan Show on KMJ. This is KMJ. Welcome back to the Marc Kapetan Show. Folks, if you are looking for some great entertainment, go to AmericanMadeConcerts.com. You can check out all the great shows that are coming up, but one of the most important shows that American Made Concerts and some of their affiliates are putting on is All Fired Up. Let me pot this music down because I got to get really serious here. So somehow I finagled Margot Kim from Channel 30. We all know her. We all love her. To sing in a live rock and roll band. This is the first time she's ever sang in a live rock and roll band. And she's going to sing her favorite, Pat Benatar. And so we started a band called All Fired Up. And on April 25th, Michael's going to go, aren't you, Michael?
If I am not working, I will be.
You firefighters.
I will be in attendance.
God. April 25th at the Fulton 55, All Fired Up, along with Two for the Show is headlining. They do Journey and Bon Jovi. Oh, great stuff, right? Journey and Bon Jovi. And the sounds of Pat Benatar featuring Margot Kim. All Fired Up. Listen to your favorites. Love is a Battlefield. All Fired Up is one of the songs, actually. We've been working really hard. You are going to love this show, and you're going to love Margot Kim. She's as great on stage as she is on the air on Channel 30, our affiliate. So All Fired Up, April 25th at the Fulton 55. We'll see you all out there, right, Michael? Yes, and you're going to get a day off. You're going to tell the captain I need a day off. Michael Pallas from the Sanger Fire Department, talking everything fire related in the LA fires, and also the husband of a wonderful young lady, Heather, who works down at our office. Michael, a couple of tests here. 5-alarm fire, what does that mean?
So a fire is dispatched with a certain amount of resources.
Yeah.
So certain number of engines, certain number of truck companies, they might dispatch an ambulance and law enforcement along with it. And that first set of resources dispatched would be considered the first alarm. So a second alarm is basically the first alarm twice. A third alarm would be additional.
We're getting the hint. Okay.
Fifth alarm additional. So
okay, I think I got the hint.
If you're having a fifth alarm fire, that's a big one.
But so it's just the number of stations that go out, or the number of resources that go out?
The number of individual apparatus.
Do you guys really still use alarms and stuff like that? Like that? Are they bells? You know,
our alarms in the station are electronic.
Yeah. Not as fun.
In older stations. Certain stations, especially around other parts of the country with older cities than Sanger, you can still find actual bells.
Yeah. Do you guys slide down a pole? Do you guys have a pole anywhere? Is there anywhere around here that has a fire pole?
I believe Fresno Fire does at Station 3.
Have you gone there just to say, I want to take a ride?
I have seen the pole. I have not.
Come on. The pole. That's got to be the dream of every firefighter.
I would not have been allowed inside at that point in my career.
Okay, some more fun stuff, though. Oh, by the way, how tough is it? I mean, do you have a conversation? We're looking at your gear here. You have an axe that weighs how much?
That's 8 pounds.
Folks, this thing is way heavier than you know, especially when you're my age. And you swing this a million times to try to break through something like that. But you have all your equipment here. Just emphasizing the danger and what you guys have to go through, including oxygen masks and stuff. Do you sit there and have that conversation with Abby's old enough to know now, and have that conversation? Is it, hey, Dad's going to work and bye-bye? But is there ever a sense when you hit up these big fires that, hey guys, I just, want to give you a little extra hug here?
Not usually before the call. Usually depending on the type of call, if it's something medical or some sort of hairy situation arises after an incident.
So after is when it all kicks in. Yeah, it's weird when I look back on it. I was about 13, maybe the last time my dad came back from war, maybe a little bit younger than that. And you're just like, okay, hey Dad, we'll see you in like a year, you know, and you have no sense of it.
Yeah. I think Abby is old enough now that she, when we left down for LA this year, she realized, you know, she's more in tune with current events and things like that. And, so knowing the severity of the fires and, you know, the media just plastering it everywhere. Yeah. So that was basically her life for a day before. And then all of a sudden her stepdad is driving down to that.
I was about to say, she knows how much of a stud her stepdad is. Yeah.
So I think she probably, I mean, Heather and I we know that's a possibility. I can get hurt. Really bad circumstances, I can die. It's not something we generally talk about.
No, well, and I didn't even want to get to that point, what you're talking about right now, just because it's just got to be tough. I remember my mom my dad would go to war for a year at a time, and she's very much, in fact, like your wife, where a little bit of a tomboy, and she's like, yep, got to take care of the kid, you know. Nothing to it, you know. And I see the other ladies out there is like, you know, they're worried because their husband's going to go, you know, for a weekend fishing or something like that. You know, they could barely handle it. They're on the cell phone constantly. Not you, Marcella.
When are you coming home?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Later.
All right, hobbies. By the way, I understand you're fluent. Folks, this guy does not look like he's fluent in Spanish at all.
No, I don't.
But you're fluent in Spanish? How'd you figure that out?
I use the term fluent loosely.
Yeah. You and Margot were talking about me earlier in Spanish, saying horrible things. I recognize some of those words.
Marcella.
Marcella. Did I say Marco? I said Marco. I'm sorry.
In high school, Washington Union, part of the required curriculum was taking 2 years of a foreign language. Yeah. The only two languages offered at the time were Spanish and French. I did not see a particular need to know French in the Central Valley. So
thanks, because that's all we took on the East Coast was French.
Spanish.
Je m'appelle Marc. Comme ça.
Yeah.
Comment allez-vous? Très bien, merci à vous.
Chinese or Russian for all I know. Yeah. Kind of sounds French, but hey.
It was wasted. But
realized in those Spanish classes that I was actually picking it up pretty easy.
Yeah.
So
it's got to help in your job too, yeah.
Knowing at the time that I was looking to get into the fire service, I figured there might be a benefit to knowing a second language. Right. So I stuck with it through college and took some advanced classes that... couple I failed pretty miserably. I would say those were probably the equivalent of a high school or even a college level English course that I was trying to do in Spanish, and that just wasn't happening.
All right, we have to geek out. We have to geek out on one last thing. You're a guitar player, and I understand you're a really, really good guitar player.
I don't think I'm really, really good.
Better than trumpet player?
I would say I was a better trumpet player than I am a guitar player. But I do not play trumpet anymore.
What kind of guitar do you have? Acoustics or electrics?
I have one acoustic.
One acoustic. What is it?
It is a Parkwood.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. What's the hardest song you could play? Is it rock and roll or is it?
I don't really stick to a genre necessarily.
Well, that means he is good because I'm a rock and roll player because that's dummy. It's like dummy guitar. You know, that's all I could play.
One of my favorite songs to just sit there and finger pick along with is "If You're Reading This" by Tim McGraw.
You're talking country?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do I look like a country guy?
No.
I know nothing about country. By the way, I may do I'm trying to get some of the guys from the Sons of the San Joaquin. Two of them have passed, obviously, and there's still one of the guys, and Bill Thornberry and Joe are still out. No, I'm sorry, Lonnie is still out there. But I'm getting into country too. So, all right, we have to go. This has been Michael Pallas from the Sanger Fire Department. Michael, thank you for lending us your wife every day of the work week. And it was just a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You be safe out there, right?
Yes, sir.
We're going to try to lift up his axe right after this, okay? And we're going to post that on YouTube and everything like that so you could see how much my bones and bodies ache after trying to lift this axe. Michael, again, thanks again. We'll see you next week on the Marc Kapetan Show. This has been KMJ.